Welcome to my channel today, and we are going to be going over a series called Apologetics from 30,000 Feet. This is a series that I did for my church over about a 12-week time period, and we're going to hit all the major topics that come across in a normal apologetics. So we will go ahead and start looking at some of the overview and a background of the material. So we always want to start off with, what is apologetics? Well, from Oxford Languages, it's the reasoned arguments or writings in justification of something, typically a theory or religious doctrine. So when we normally in society, we usually think of apologetics in a religious sense. Now, from Knowledge of God by Frame, he says that if theology is the application of Scripture to all areas of life, then apologetics is the application of Scripture to unbelief, including the unbelief that remains in Christian hearts. So when I first taught the class, I tried to explain that apologetics really is for the believer. Most people think it's to address unbelief, but really it is to shore up the confidence of the believer to be able to go out and address the gospel to unbelievers in the world. If you have any doubts, which we all have some doubts, and we'll look at faith down the road and how faith isn't completely 100%. There's always going to be a little bit of stuff that we have to have faith in. But we got to have confidence in what we are talking about. So that's the intent of this course today. So what is apologetics of a Christian worldview? All right, let's break down some definitions. Apologetics is a defense of the faith. A worldview is a view of life through which we think, understand, and judge, and which determines our approach to life and meaning. Our worldview is based on a biblical worldview. A biblical worldview is based on the Bible. Therefore, it is a defense of the Bible itself, the content and message of the Bible, which is to think, understand, and judge, and to determine the meaning of life and living out of the Bible. So that is our approach. We're going to look at a video by James RochFord. His YouTube channel is Evidence Unseen. We integrate him a lot into our material, so we will have a link in the description below. I highly recommend you check out his material and his book called Evidence Unseen. He does a great job of summarizing, and so we're going to address the problem of evil. And before we start that video, I just want to step back. So we're looking at apologetics, and we sometimes may start from a biblical perspective, but we're starting back even further. Is there a God? And if there isn't a God, in some people's perspective, why is that? Well, one reason that you may encounter is the problem of evil. Why is there evil in this world? So we will go ahead and watch this and make a few comments along the way.
It's all hope. We can give up on the good and give up on evil, but that means we need to give up on the good. We can give up on God, but that means we're giving up on the solution to the problem. By giving up on God, we lose everything. Bertrand Russell was quoted as saying, I cannot find this quote, but reputable people have quoted him as saying that no one can sit at no one can sit at the bedside of a dying child and still believe in God. In fact, some atheists have asked the question based on this citation. What would you say to a child that was dying? What would you say about God to that child?
So if you recently saw Alex O'Connor, and he was in a debate, but he brought up this very issue, is children with cancer or the death of babies, the death of children. And he's a world-famous atheist, and it's a common argument. So Bertrand Russell here is a famous mathematician, and he wrote the Principia Mathematica, and that is the basis for a lot of math, or a foundation that for further math that came down the line. It's actually used in a lot of stuff today. And he looked at the world through an atheistic view and actually wrote a book on it. So that's who this guy that he's getting ready to talk about.
To which William Lane Craig responded, What would Bertrand Russell say to that child? What does he have to offer? Talk about tongue-tied. But we don't have to wonder about this, by the way. Read Bertrand Russell's essay, A Free Man's Worship. We'll read a little excerpt here together. He writes this: brief and powerless is man's life. On him and all his race, the slow, sure doom falls pitiless and dark. Blind to good and evil, reckless of destruction, omnipotent matter rolls on its relentless way. No heroism, no intensity of thought and feeling can preserve an individual life beyond the grave. All the labors of the ages, all the devotion, all the inspiration, all the noonday brightness of human genius are destined to extinction in the vast death of the solar system. So what? What are we supposed to do? He concludes, the whole temple of man's achievement must inevitably be buried beneath the debris of a universe in ruins. Well, thanks, Bert, for the incredible comfort. I appreciate that, Grandpa. So I'm dying. Now, compare that with a story that Randy Alcorn shares, where the young girl was dying of cancer, leukemia. She was incurable. And she said to her parents, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of dying. And the family was a Christian family. They got her out of bed. They said to their daughter, what we want you to do is all the family is going to stand here, and we want you to go walk through that door into that closet. And so she did. And then, one by one, each member of the family walked into that door with her. And they said, this is what's going to happen. You're going to go to heaven first, but we are going to be right behind you. That illustration doesn't go far enough, because the illustration really should be, when you open that door, you don't go into a dark and dismal closet. You open the door to see the face of Jesus Christ. And you see every person that you've ever loved. And you see innumerable angels. And you're in paradise.
So, as you can see, the problem of evil is a big issue in the world. And it's a big problem for atheists. And as you can see, what response does the atheist have? The theist or the Christian worldview offers a hope. They have no solution. They just eventual heat death of the universe, and then we all become nothing. And it's like we never had anything to contribute, and all of our feelings, love, everything that we can think of is all for nothing. There's no hope in that. So we're going to go on and just kind of do an overview of the general arguments of the theist versus atheist argument. So we have a tale of two worldviews. And before I became a Christian, I had more of an atheistic worldview. I wouldn't say I was an atheist, but it was more of, the world's just spinning, and it's just always been that way. Almost a deist worldview, that once, if there was a creator, he got the ball rolling, and then it was fend for yourself. So we're going to look at these two worldviews. One is the deliberate results of a creator, and then the other one is the everything is a cosmic series of events, and that's the materialistic naturalism view. So the deliberate results of a creator. Let's just look again, stepping back. We're not getting into the weeds of the details, but just common sense. We live in a universe that's approximate guess is 2 trillion galaxies with 100 billion stars in each galaxy. They scan the night sky with a telescope, and they take a sampling, and they extrapolate from that. So we have a humongous universe, and we don't even know where to begin. Now, the fact that we're here even talking about God, that's an argument. Why are we even here? Why is the idea of a God something bigger than us even in our thought processes? Why aren't we just scavenging for food and just trying to survive? Okay, the fact that we can love, laugh, and compose music. We are intellectual. We have something beyond instincts. We have this capability to love and have a family and to laugh and have humor and compose music that gives you the feels, something that's connects beyond just the neurons in our brain. And then God intervenes and provides answers in Scripture. So that's the next argument. So the idea is, okay, if there is a creator, then is he going to communicate to us? Okay? Well, that's a faith thing, and we're going to get into that in these videos. But lastly, there is a supernatural world. That's the end of it all. There is something beyond us. We're not walking bags of meat. We're not walking bags of water. There's something beyond us, a creator and a supernatural world. So the antithesis of that is that everything's just a series of accidents. We're goo that evolved over time into what we are today. We're just matter and energy. We're running on electrical impulses. And it's deterministic. So the idea of deterministic is just a series of events that one caused the other, and we're just the ultimate fruit of that. And that our conversation here is all determined ahead of time because that's how the pieces fell out. And it could be modeled. And we would know what's going to happen next if we knew everything about the whole world and all the influential parameters. And that everything will be lost in a cosmic heat death. Eventually the sun will expand. And then the universe will grow cold, and then everything dies. The worldview of the materialist, naturalist is that if it's not testable, falsifiable, or repeatable, don't bother. And that's where the divide is. I'm a scientist by nature and training myself. But if this is all there is, and that's where the cutoff is, that's where the division between the theistic and the atheistic worldview is. And in a nutshell, there is no supernatural world. All right, so that's the end of the slides for today. We are just getting started, and this is just an overview. Next week, we're going to get a little deeper, maybe a deep dive into the reasoning, starting with Jesus all the way to scripture reliability. And by the end of this series, we're going to look at the history of the Bible, the reliability of the Bible, supernatural inspiration. We're going to look at historical archaeology. We're going to look at prophecy. My favorite part is the predictive prophecy of the Old Testament. We're not talking about the future. We're not talking about newspaper eschatology. We're talking about prophecy that has already been fulfilled. I look forward to seeing you all in the next one, and thank you for watching.